I'm Jorge Landador. I'm in favor. I represent myself, and I'm in favor of this bill. Specifically, I'm going to talk about qualified immunity. We've heard a lot of nonsense and misinformation about qualified immunity today. Qualified immunity originally started the way it was portrayed today, where police officers and other civil servants could not be sued unless they violated someone's rights. However, the test became, you had a two-part test, and the second part of the test is the really bad part, where it had to be a clearly established right. But that's defined so narrowly as to be meaningless. For example, if an officer takes a fork and stabs somebody with the fork, well, there's probably not a case of an officer stabbing somebody with a fork. So they're going to say, sorry, that specific, very, very narrow thing has not been adjudicated in court. And now it never will be, because qualified immunity prevents it from ever becoming part of the case. So let's say, I'll give you another example. This one actually happened. Two officers stole $250,000 from a suspect in cash. They just pocketed his money and walked off with it during an arrest. This went to court. The court said, sorry, stealing money has not, this is a clear violation of somebody's civil rights, obviously. But the court said, sorry, stealing cash from somebody? There's no court case that says that this pierces qualified immunity. Well, now it can't pierce qualified immunity because there's no court case specifically saying that it does. And now it never will, because in order to establish, if it's catch-22, where in order to establish qualified immunity, you have to have a case saying it pierces qualified immunity. The only way to get a case that allows it to pierce qualified immunity is for that case to actually go forward, but you can never get there. This catch-22 is very bad. And this is the core of the problem. Qualified immunity used to be this. It became this over time. When the courts created qualified immunity in the 60s, what they were trying to do is prevent cops from being from getting in trouble for things that were newly identified as rights. That's not what ended up happening. What ended up happening by the time we get to now is that there is a lot of abuses. In my neck of the woods, Judge Kim was telling me an example of a case when he was a defense attorney, where a police officer took a suspect's phone and asked for it. The guy handed his phone, looked at it, threw it on the ground, stomped on it. Well, this is a clear violation of somebody's rights, obviously. I mean, it's pretty egregious. This was ruled as not protected, as you couldn't sue because, well, there's no actual case saying that destroying somebody's phone is a violation of their rights.
Okay, for civils.
All right, sir.
Any questions, ma'am? Members, the chair recognizes Representative Goodwin.
So do you see a solution that is still would keep 1,000 police officers from leaving the police force, but still fixes the problem that you've outlined?
Well, I don't believe that would happen because we didn't have it in the 60s. We had police in the 60s. However, there are ways to fix the problem without getting rid of qualified immunity entirely. For example, you could change the rules of civil procedure to define the way qualified immunity is handled in a much more expansive way. Right now, it's handled very, very narrowly, and so narrowly as to basically meaningless. You have to find a case which means an old case, or a case that a judge just decided arbitrarily, this is ridiculous, and went with it. So you could go to the procedures and say that in cases of qualified immunity, determination of qualified immunity has to be done in a much broader sense. Right now, the Supreme Court has said if you have qualified immunity, it has to be done extremely narrowly. But if we define it in statute for Texas, that would be different for Texas.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Eugene Howard. After Eugene Howard, we will have Dr. James Dixon, Michael Green.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Eugene Howard. I'm here representing the Texas State NAACP, as well as the Missouri County NAACP, as well as my private citizenship for myself. I am in favor of House Bill 88. In our local community, in Missouri County, we have 5 police agencies that have already committed to police reform, to restorative criminal justice. As we speak today, it's in the books. So when I hear, if we do this, all the cops are going to leave. If we do this, this is going to happen. Where there's a will, there's a way. So it's about the attitude of wanting to do things. If you would have told me a year ago, well, let me say 2 years ago, COVID kind of stole a year from everyone. So if you say 2 years ago, if you would ask me, would you be here testifying about a serious chance to get meaningful reforms to where the community can regain its trust in law enforcement, and law enforcement can demonstrate that it wants to be the good citizen that we know most law enforcement officers to be. And for, I've heard a lot, well, if we do this, the officer's going to say this, and that. Or what if, he made a split decision, which was a bad decision, and he's putting his whole family's financial future. What about the black families and the minority families who, that one mistake, forget your family's future, there is no more future because they're dead. We need to stop the bleeding, as the representative said, and start the breathing.
That is violence.
So I'm imploring on the goodwill of this committee, of this House. He was a Texan. We all unfortunately suffered during this winter storm. For us in the Greater Houston area, we've gone through Harvey and other hurricanes, and we've had natural disasters here. And one thing I always see, that I am proud, because I'm a Texas boy. I love saying that. I am a Texas boy. So we see that, and we see Texas strong. Well, we saw one of our Texans murdered in Minnesota. So what are Texans going to do about it? Now, I know we wanted to make this not a partisan issue, but I find it rather funny that our representatives can find time to talk about issues when they want to talk about issues. But when it comes to with the citizens and with the community at large wants, we duck and dodge. So again, thank you, Committeeman White, for this opportunity, and I am in favor for House Bill 80.
Thank you, sir. Dr. James Dixon. Dr. James Dixon, let's go down to Michael Grady. Okay. Good afternoon, Michael. Thank you for coming, and beforehand, thank you for stating your name, who you're representing, and your position on the bill. And after Michael Grady, we'll have Scott Henson.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for giving me this opportunity to share with you today. My name is Michael Grady. I am from the city of El Paso, Texas, representing the Board Network for Human Rights and the El Paso Police Department Accountability Task Force. And I appreciate you giving me an opportunity. I'm also a pastor for the last 54 years. So I come from a place a little bit different than legislation. I was reading today as I prepared to come and testify, that one of the things I read is that out of the heart flows the issues of life. The other thing I read is that the letter kills, but the spirit makes it alive, which means that laws were never designed to legislate hearts. There must be a willingness on the person who is exposed to the law to surrender his will to the obedience of the law. In House Bill number 88, which I am totally for, it represents an opportunity for the citizens of Texas and the citizens of the nation to be honest with themselves. As I was sitting preparing to testify today, I found out that an individual in our city of El Paso, Texas, Eric Salas Sanchez, was shot 3 times in the back by a police officer. Part of the challenge that we face today is not really only looking at this bill as a means to an end, but as an exposure for the darkness of the hearts of individuals who have been given an opportunity to some degree to operate in impunity. Over the past 12 years, 30 persons have died while in police custody in the city of El Paso, Texas, by the Rio Grande. And even in 2021, this year, there have been 4 shootings, 2 of them resulting in death. For El Paso citizens, this appears to be a high rate and appears to represent a future consistent with policies that operate with impunity. The George Floyd Act, when adopted into law, will give relief to El Paso citizens and all Texans as a breath of fresh air by holding accountable law enforcement with legal weight of oversight that will encourage and demand safe community policing. During the Black Lives Matter movement in the city of El Paso, Texas, excessive force was used once again upon peaceful protesters who moved throughout the city in order to instill fear and intimidate marchers by the same people who should have been available once again to protect and serve. The challenge today is to establish in our communities the kind of accountability that citizens and a citizen oversight commission might be formed in the city of El Paso.
And Mr. Grady, thank you for that, because you're bringing up good points, and you've been down to the city council to also advocate, promote these views.
That is correct.
Let me see if there's some members that have some questions that they bring in. Members? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much.
Chair recognizes Scott Henson. After Scott Henson, James Dixon.